Hey everybody, this is Sheets, and I'm going to be doing our first look at the Sunday main slate for the NFL this weekend. Because of the Thanksgiving slate, everybody's kind of slow to get started with their analysis, and I'm no exception. So we're going to take kind of an overview of the slate. We're going to look at the team totals, and then get into kind of the early projections to see who I think is going to look good. And then we will do kind of an early first look run of the Sims using SaberSim. So again, just to kind of look and see what we have here, let's just look at the team totals first. You have 45, 42, 45, 43, 45. Like everything is pretty close. Cincinnati 48, 47, 46, 48. All right, so the Philly game is a 50, but everything is within 5 points of one another, which, well, I shouldn't say that because Indianapolis, New England is like 8 points lower than Baltimore, Philly. But the point is that I don't think any game, at least on team totals, just kind of stands out. Then we'll take a look again at other factors. So, like the New Orleans game is in a dome, so that's going to help that. The Atlanta game is in a dome, that's going to help that. What else? Minnesota, that weather there will help that. That's in a dome as well. So you would imagine that those games are going to produce some decent projections. But again, that doesn't factor in price or anything like that. So we're going to just have to wait and see. Now, do I want to do this game by game, or do I want to do this just kind of an overall slate view? Let's do this game by game, and then see if anything stands out. Is that the way I want to do this? No, let's go by position. Okay. So what I'm doing here off on the right is I'm going to be sorting my projections by both point per dollar and by Sheets value score, which I've talked about before, and just see which guys kind of stand out and see if we can build kind of an idea of what stacks are going to look good based on that. So the first thing I notice is that both point per dollar and Sheets value score ends up the same top option, and that is Justin Herbert. So we're going to look to that game, I guess, right off the bat. So he's only 5,600. So Herbert is looking like the best play overall as quarterback. He's also looking to be the highest owned as well, but that should come as no surprise. So as far as quarterbacks, what I'm looking at here, let me just do this. Okay. Justin Herbert, I have at the top. And then I have a whole bunch of other guys. So Sam Darnold from Minnesota, I have him right up there. I have Anthony Richardson from the Colts. He's kind of right up there. But these are all kind of definitely under Herbert. Then we have Jaden Daniels in the Washington game. He looks decent. I mean, really all the way down. Jalen Hurts, Matthew Stafford. It's gonna be a pretty spread out field of players this week as far as who people are playing, with the exception of Herbert. Now let's just take a look. If I look at it by point per dollar, if that changes anything. I mean, not really. I mean, Anthony Richardson, Sam Darnold again. So Herbert, Richardson, Darnold, these guys are standing out a couple of times. Will Levis and Derek Carr get in the mix once we start putting in point per dollar? Geno Smith looks pretty good. So Justin Herbert is going to look like the best play, but all the other guys I mentioned, Anthony Richardson, Sam Darnold, Matthew Stafford, those look like good plays. So we look again back at the team totals to see if that jives. So Jaden Daniels from Washington, yes. This is a little interesting that Anthony Richardson from the lowest team total game on the slate is projected to be one of the better plays. That's interesting. Sam Darnold in the Arizona game, this makes sense. Geno Smith a little bit over here. Who else did we mention? So Herbert in that dome game against Atlanta. It's going to make sense. Stafford and Derek Carr, both in that same game. So that could be an interesting stack situation. And obviously, what's his name? Jalen Hurts looks really good. Why am I not? Yeah, for some reason, I'm not really getting much Lamar. He's way down the list for me this week, which is you don't see all too often. But yet I am getting okay projection on Jalen Hurts. So very interesting. But again, Hurts for Philly, both guys from the Rams and the Saints. Herbert, the Anthony Richardson, we'll have to dive into a little more. Sam Darnold for the Minnesota game, and Jaden Daniels as well. And interestingly, Will Levis we mentioned as a good point per dollar play. So probably play a really low owned game stack here, Washington, Tennessee. Now again, we just looked at the quarterbacks. I mean, unless the quarterbacks have good receivers to go to, I mean, that's not really a great stacking situation. But again, they wouldn't project well at quarterback anyway if we didn't feel as though they had good receivers to throw the ball to. So anyway, let's take a look now at running back and see what that looks like. All right, first, we will do point per dollar first. No, we'll do Sheets value score first. And then we'll see what we have. Wow, so Alvin Kamara really, really stands out as the top running back on the slate when you're sorting specifically by Sheets value score, which considers both point per dollar and upside. So, I mean, already you're starting to see a little bit of a build here. You want to play Derek Carr as a cheapo along with Alvin Kamara, who catches balls out of backfield. If we can find a good receiver for him, I mean, this is already off to a good start. And the Rams, with the Matthew Stafford projection, are going to look really good too. So this game is starting to look pretty good right off the bat. In addition to Kamara, when I'm sorting by points per dollar, once again, there's like a drop. And then I'm getting Chase Brown and Joe Mixon. It's the next group. So Joe Mixon from this Pittsburgh game, which is scary. You don't expect to run against Pittsburgh, but that's where I'm getting. Joe Mixon against Jacksonville. Yeah, that seems to make a lot of sense. Ooh, and then you have the next group, Bijan Robinson and Chuba Hubbard. So Bijan specifically from the Atlanta game is interesting because you have Justin Herbert showing up as a good play on the other side of that. So that could end up looking like a pretty decent game stack as well. As far as Chuba Hubbard, yeah, I mean you can score on Tampa. So this actually could be pretty interesting if you want to play Chuba Hubbard for Carolina. That makes a lot of sense actually. And even Bryce Young is cheap. I didn't really talk about him in terms of a good point per dollar play, but it's actually not bad. So you want to do some business this game, I think this could be sneaky. Let me look at points per dollar for running backs. See if that opens up anything else. Not really. Chase Brown, top point per dollar play. Alvin Kamara again. Chuba Hubbard, Joe Mixon, Bijan Robinson. So I think these are the five main dudes that we're going to be looking at as far as top running backs. Brown, Kamara, Hubbard, Mixon, and Bijan Robinson. So let's look at receivers now. Actually, you want to do tight end first? Yeah, we may as well. Let's do tight end first. So tight ends, first of all, as far as point per dollar goes, it looks as though TJ Hawkinson is my best point per dollar play right now for Minnesota. So that kind of goes along with, the Sam Darnold play. Then you have Trey McBride, Zach Ertz, who goes okay with Jaden Daniels. Ooh, you get Taysom Hill again for the Saints. So you're starting to build some decent Saints stacks here. So he looks good. Will Dissly looks okay. Let's that was by point per dollar. When I'm looking at Sheets value score, which prioritizes kind of raw points a little bit more than just point per dollar. See how that affects it. You're the same guys pretty much: McBride, Hawkinson, Taysom Hill. So you can see that we're already starting to build something here. This Minnesota thing. With starting with Darnold and Hawkinson, and we're going to see if we can get Jefferson in there as well. And then the Saints with Carr, Kamara, Taysom Hill. If we can get a receiver in there, then we're starting to build something good over there as well. All right. So speaking of which, let's take a look at the receivers. And again, I apologize. I just really can't be showing the projections right now. But when it comes to receivers, looking at Sheets value score first, I'm imagining. Yeah, so these are the guys we talked about. Wow, this is awesome. The top Sheets value score is almost always somebody like Justin Jefferson, but this week you actually finally get Puka Nacua breaking out to be the top rated by Sheets value score, which again, I'm saying Sheets value score. Everybody's supposed to know what this is, but it's my own metric, which I've talked about a lot on here, and you usually do get a high-priced guy with the top score there, and Puka Nacua really has just kind of stood out here. Not to mention Cooper Kupp. So both of those guys, I have those guys, two of the top three rated by Sheets value score, and then the aforementioned Justin Jefferson. So the Minnesota stack is looking really good. And as you might remember, I also called out Trey McBride, right, at tight end. So this stack right here, playing Darnold with Jefferson and Hawkinson and running it back with McBride, certainly is going to make a lot of sense. I don't know if it's going to be overly popular, but I would imagine so. Who else for Sheets value score wide receivers? Nico Collins from Houston, good one off. T. Higgins and Jamar Chase. All right, so both these guys look good. So with that said, I mean, you could put these two with Burrow. And I didn't mention Burrow because he's really expensive, I believe. But, that certainly doesn't affect the ceiling. It just, requires some sacrifice in other positions. So I'm not going to kill you if you played all these Cincinnati guys. Remember, I mentioned Chase Brown as one of the top running backs on the slate. So if you have Chase Brown as one of the top three running backs, T. Higgins and Jamar Chase is, two of the top six receivers. I mean, this is, if you could afford all this, I mean, sure, go for it. But so far, we haven't really seen a lot of a really, really good value that's going to open up your salary cap. So it's going to be hard to play, say, Burrow with Higgins and Chase. It's going to be hard to play Stafford with both Nacua and Kupp. But if value does open up, then yeah, those stacks also are going to be really, really strong. Okay, the top receiver in that Charger situation is going to be Ladd McConkey. He doesn't project all that great, but I mean he's in there. I mean, but I have him like 10th as far as value score goes. And I mentioned that Herbert looks like one of the better plays, if not the best play, actually. But if you can't pair him with the receivers, it's going to be tough. So let's take a look let me just take a look at points per dollar for a second, see if that changes anything. All right, so a couple of guys move up. So yeah, so Ladd McConkey does actually, go up a little bit for points per dollar because it's only 6,100. You can't really see that double stack though for the Chargers. So if you were that type that wanted to play, quarterback with two receivers, I can get you McConkey, but I don't think I can get you anybody else. Brian Thomas for Jacksonville actually shows up as a good point per dollar play. So just kind of as a one-off over there. Aside from that, Drake London shows up. So Drake London, if you did want to play this game, you could play kind of a, Herbert with McConkey with both Bijan and London, something like that. I mean, you could definitely do that. One cheapo that's showing up, figured I would mention this, would be David Moore for Carolina. And don't underestimate something like this. So like I already mentioned, you have Chuba Hubbard as a good point per dollar play over there, and Bryce Young kind of a fringe point per dollar quarterback, if you want to do this, you could play, say, Bryce Young, Chuba Hubbard, and then say David Moore, and use a very little salary, and then you can end up like jamming in like some of these high priced guys that I talked about, like the Cups and then the Kuas and the Kamaras and guys like that, without having to stack those games. This is actually a pretty intriguing way to go, actually, with Bryce Young, Moore, Hubbard. And if you want, I mean, you can run it back with someone on Tampa, but I haven't really found anybody from Tampa. Mike Evans is the top guy, but he doesn't even look that great. Another guy I should mention, he's like kind of pushing to get on that list here is Darnell Mooney. He looks okay. So yeah, so that's probably my initial look, at least the players go, so to kind of, and then we're going to do some builds in a second. So again, quarterbacks, and well, let's put it all together. Didn't really see much to go with Jaden Downs, except actually really nothing. Didn't really see much to go with Tennessee. Indianapolis, we talked about that. I said that Anthony Richardson looked pretty good, but I didn't see anybody to pair with him. Nothing from New England. But this Minnesota thing is very, very logical, with Darnold, Jefferson, Hawkinson, Trey McBride, double tight end. Seattle Jets, nothing really coming from that game of great note. Houston, kind of a one-off with Collins. That was it. Jacksonville, you could play Brian Thomas. Cincinnati, if you can afford this stack, this is very strong. Maybe what you can do, like I said, we'd have to figure out how that built, but if you played those Carolina cheapos, including David Moore, then you could maybe get to these big Cincinnati stats. Chargers, Atlanta, we found guys from both sides of this game, right? We eventually found McConkey and along with Herbert, and then all three of those guys from Atlanta, Bijan, what's his name, Drake London, and Darnell Mooney. This Tampa Carolina game, again, those value pieces from Carolina look good. Rams Saints, just a bunch of guys from this game. All from I didn't really get to Kyron Williams though. It's mostly the receivers. So top two high price receivers, Stafford, Saints cheaper. Carr with Taysom Hill, but I didn't see any receivers from the Saints that looked good, which was a little annoying. You tell me Chris Olave? Oh, he's not even. I don't even have him projected. Oh, you know what you're getting? You're getting Marquez Valdes-Scantling, maybe. So I'm not even sure who's playing yet from the Saints. Let me just see what it looks like. Based on my projections, I mean nobody. Wait, let me see. Based on my projections, it's like all the reserves. So it's a pretty, maybe Cedric Wilson. I mean, these projections are so low. Maybe go back to Valdes-Scantling again. I mean, I don't know what else to say. He's been doing it. And this is turning into a kind of an interesting game stack. This Saints game, and Philly Baltimore, as good of a game as this could be, not really getting to too much of it. I'm not getting to Barkley for some reason, and which seems kind of silly. Guy only scores like 75,000 fantasy points a game, but why am I not getting to, him at all? Let me just see. What's his projection I have? Really, I only have 20 points, and he's 8,500. That's the problem. Okay. Let's do a build here and see what we would get with SaberSim. Now, I'm not going to run the Sims. I'm just going to kind of run the. Actually, you know what? While I'm here, I have to do this anyway. Let me upload the contest that I'm playing. I already entered the dummy lineups in the DraftKings. This way, next time I do this, say on Sunday, we will have all this data already saved. All right. So these are all the stuff I'm playing on Sunday. So now let's go back. Now we can run the Sims actually. And I'm curious to see if the Sims kind of reflects the types of builds that I was kind of trying to get, well, not trying to get to, kind of backing into using my projections. Okay. So what we're doing again, we're going to build the 5,000 lineup, see what we get. I'm predicting that we get what I wanted or what I suggested. So what does that mean? I don't know. I don't know what it means. Herbert, McConkey. You got to get Darnold, right? I bet you this David Moore shows up in like 100% of lineups. Because with that projection, given like all this other stuff that you kind of would like to pay up for, I think he's going to actually show up really popular. We shall see. I mean, his projection is only like 8. I mean, it's a big deal. But let's just see what we get. All right. Let's look at it this way. Let's first take a look and see what we would get without simming. So without simming, just on straight exposures, Chase Brown would be the top play. So it looks like, and then all these guys I mentioned, Kamara, Herbert, Nakua, Jets D. We didn't talk about defense. Hawkinson, McConkey, Cup, like all the guys that I kind of mentioned, and a decent amount of this Chuba Hubbard, which is I was expecting something like that. And then as you can see, you can get to this Rams double stack actually really easily with the David Moore. You know, the David Moore. It's just what percent of David Moore am I getting actually? Only 8%. That's very interesting. But like the top ones are getting David Moore. See that? So the top rated lineups are stacking those Rams and using David Moore to punt that. And I actually like that. I mean, it's not a big slate. Maybe this could be one of those slates where you play the $3,400 receiver, you take the zero, and still win. Possible. All right, let's run the Sims and see if that does anything for us. See if that changes things. Before I do anything, I do want to. I want to save these for now, just so I have something saved. So something saved. But now let's see what happens after we run the Sims here. See how that impacts everything. Okay. So now after we run the Sims, it looks as though it's now even more Minnesota. So Hawkinson, Darnold, Jefferson, but we're still able to get to Puka. I really like this Chuba Hubbard idea and the David Moore. Let me see how much David Moore I'm getting. Only 6%. I don't know about that. But again, apparently you didn't need it. So what I'd like to do is put I'll do just for the Millie Maker. Well, we could do it for all. We'll put the top buy-in at the top. And what this does is if there's a lineup that sims well in all the things I'm playing, it's going to prioritize based on this order. Now we will replace those. So those look like two, you know, that what it looks like is that the David Moore decision, presuming everything holds, is going to be the interesting one. Because if you do that, then you can get all kinds of fun stuff. If you don't do it, you can probably make good lineups as well. But yeah. Okay, that is going to do it for now. I really don't have time to do the FanDuel, but we will do it Sunday. I will see you guys then. Bye-bye. Eric Haber.